Hi, I'm John and welcome back to my Lair of Action Figures. Today we're going to be having a closer look at the new Haslab, the Snow Cat. Yes, it is true, it is the Snow Cat. So I quickly wanted to go onto the page of Hasbro. For it, as you can see, we have 45 days to back this project. Currently, we're sitting at around 3,000 pieces who are already backed. I'm one of them, I only picked up one. Of course, you can see that the suggested retail price is $324.99, who's a bit more expensive than the His tank, who was at $199. Sorry, $299 if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it does put it as a bit higher as a price, but we would be comparing. Of course, the vehicle itself is a lot bigger. You'll be able to see it in the pictures that I have, and when we be talking about it. But like I said, let's go and quickly have a little scroll down. Of course, because there's some of the pictures, as I want to hurry up to put this video out to be in the first to have something out there. So we're going to be having a look at this closer on. Of course, this I'm going to be talking about this part here because this is ridiculous. The steering wheels work well. I then had the cool pictures over here, but as you can see, they really did fantastic work on the canopy over here. The way it opens and the three different parts, this is something of pretty neat. I like the fact of getting the windscreen wiper. That was one of the accessories who was with the original one but had a tendency of breaking. They really went out on this thing. Looks like a Christmas tree with all the lights that come on. It does feel well because it's a snow vehicle, so of course Christmas. But all of this turns on. You have some extra light in the cockpit. You have some over here. You have some lights over here. Some lights there. Light there. You have some behind. I mean, this thing is a real Christmas tree. So of course, this is the way our friend Frostbite looks like. We'll be getting into some more details. Something pretty nice that they did. Of course, the turret, same principle as the original one, but they did some new versions of the firing effects were pretty nice, so we'll be getting into it. So yes, the rumors were true. It does have some cargo and some troop transport, but we're going to get into that. So of course, they're saying it's a 6.9 liter engine turbo. Well, if that engine is all over there, I don't believe this vehicle will go very far or needs to do a few pit stops, and it must have done because I can prove you that it did some pit stops because the fuel reservoir for this vehicle is pretty low. So of course there's some pretty nice details. The engine panel is pretty neat the way it's done. I really think that this is something that is pretty nice to have. Of course, you could say you could do some more details, but if you're pretty good with some paintbrush and some paint, you could do this extra. I like the fact that we have the tools. I will be getting into more of it. The fact of some storage over there, really like it. But here we're getting to some of the most ridiculous parts of this vehicle. So this is a part that is pulled out and it's for cooking. So over here you should have a gas stove. So this gas stove is with tier 2, who unlocks at 12,000. I believe we will get there, no problem. Cup holders, yeah, don't really see that happening. And then we have some ice cubes over here. So Trip would like to remind you that you're in cold weather and you are telling me that you need ice cubes. Are you really completely out of your head? Now, the thing was very funny is the compartment to store the ice accessory preserve their food and supplies. Well, sorry, if you were in the army, you don't need this. You have MREs, meals ready to eat. And you don't need some ice. And if it's really as cold as you're saying, you need to leave the stuff out on the back of your vehicle or hanging over your vehicle over here, and that stuff will be conserved because due to the fact that you have colder temperatures on the outside, if you're more into the Arctic way or even if you want to stay in the coldest areas, the moment you're under 4 degrees or around 2 degrees Celsius, you're going to be colder than your fridge. So this, like I said, is something that makes it a bit laughing, especially for the people who know me, because of course you know me as a collector. But what you have to know also is I did an apprenticeship and I am a chef. I have also a hotel school diploma. So yeah, I've been running businesses, and I did run a hotel restaurant in Canada that I purchased. And I can tell you that when it was winter and I was doing the receptions or some kind of cocktails, I was super happy to do it in the winter. I was not happy to do it in the summertime because the place was not adapted to put all the beverages to the cold. But when the winter was there, you need to throw them outside and pick them up and be careful not to freeze, because at minus 25, wine and beer and all those kind of stuff can freeze pretty fast over. So of course we're going to continue down, and we'll be talking about the snow effects over here that are interesting. This is something that I will be pointing out a bit of the ridiculousness. So this is a picture of everything you should be getting if you unlock the 3 tiers. So I was one, no Blizzard Tiger Force, so yeah, not going to happen. But as you can see, there's going to be a lot to be talking about, because there's certain stuff here who is pretty ridiculous. Anyway, let's dive into some closer pictures, and I'm going to give you my thoughts about it. Also, do I think it's worth the money, and all the other stuff that we have to talk about. So I did some print screens of the show itself, the fan stream, and I wanted to show how big this vehicle is. Of course, there was nice of Lenny to put over here a Stinger, then the his tank to be able to compare, and you can see how massive this vehicle is. Even for the figure who's over here. But anyway, let's dive into some of the pictures and some of the issues that I want to talk about. So, of course, over here you can see, compared to the original picture of the prototype, because it's still a prototype, this has gone onto a more detailed version of it with working tracks compared to the original one. And of course, if you remember the video I did about comparing the Snow Cat and the his tank, you will remember that the one I have, who's a later model, they also decided to add some extra paint. As you can see, there's a lot of lights going on over here. There's some little accessories, the antenna, the radar for the camera for the pointing for the missiles, locks, and this kind of stuff is a pretty nice touch. The fact of having this who is being able to lift up and down. Of course, this is a nice little feature who reminds you of the original one where you could put some figures behind. Now, you will have to jump off, because if you're standing up behind here, you have a missile who goes off, you're not going to end, you're going to be ending up as toast. As I was saying, you saw on the other side you had this panel. This panel has nothing in it. Who's a bit of a shame. I would have not mind to have maybe had something a little extra over here. The fact of having the ski torpedoes or ski pedos or whatever they call them, that's how they call them in the show, does sound a bit weird. In a box, yeah, I don't mind that at all. So of course I was saying this is something that I find pretty ridiculous. I don't understand why they want to do it. Physically, would it be possible to do it if you have it? Yes, but what is the interest of you having to pimp my ride and have it go like this? I mean, it does not make sense. And why would you want to do some kind of wheelies like a motorbike? This feature reminds me of a remote control car from back in the days. It still continued in the second version, but anybody who was doing some Tamiya racing cars, remote control cars, will remember this big boy here, the Wild Willis. You know, you could there was a function where you would accelerate and he would be driving on his back wheels, who made it a bit fun, but yeah, not my cup of tea. I don't think that feature is really interesting. So of course you do have the dimensions, and I must say that this is pretty impressive as a vehicle itself. So of course the fact of having the possibility to steer the wheels, of course not from inside, because you saw at the beginning of the video that it's not a steering wheel who's in it, it's some kind of jet way of doing it. And there's there seems to be two places where you can drive, left and right. I don't know why is that for, but of course that's something to point out, but I would have preferred the steering wheel. Now over here there's another big issue. You don't have any tow cable, and that's something that I think should be featured with this vehicle. Now I was talking to you about the fact of being able to remove this paneling and having this over here, and you have some storage. Now this having extra storage on your vehicle makes it a pretty cool feature, a place feature. But is this really for kids? Depends. Well, I do consider myself a grown-up kid, and I do love enjoying doing pictures, so of course this is something that's pretty neat to be able to have some extra storages. But this is where you should be able to transport your troops. Now I don't know if you have ever tried to serve, if you served in the army, and if you did you do any cold weather stuff? I can tell you I did a survival course. It was done at the end of my military school, and we were stationed in a place, and I had all the cooking gear out, and it poured down like hell. I did not sleep. I was cleaning all the cooking material at 2 o'clock in the morning, because that stuff was so fragile and so hard to upkeep that if it was not perfect, you will not have any cooking power or burner from it, because there was some petrol that you needed to pump to pressurized to do, and it was just horrible. And during the night, so that the kitchen will not be completely damaged by the water, I was going around with some ladles pushing on the tent parts to remove the water. It was just horrendous. So of course, like I said, I was wet through. The next morning we moved to go to the mobilized place where we had to be, and I was soaking wet, and I was shaking like a leaf. I was so cold, it was really bad. And it was not winter time. So I let you imagine, if you are in the winter, you have no protection, and you're sitting in the back of that vehicle with nothing at all, you're going to freeze to death. So of course, the fact of having the trap so you can go in, like I said, this would have been nice for the extra sets and the accessories to be put into there. So yeah, it would make sense. Now of course, we already joked about this, how this is ridiculous and serves no purpose. So of course, here we're going to go. I did want a bit fast, but the engine here, I really wanted to take a closer look at it, because I really find this pretty fascinating, as I said. And as you can see, you have two different tools over here, even if this one, I guess, is the same one that was with CoverGirl and Clutch. But as you can see, there's a lot of detail going around over there, and I'm very, very happy about that part. Now, of course, if you go and watch the video, you will know that Cobra Commander is joking about how much UV he's getting. So I hope he did put some face tan on, because he's going to be really getting a lot of UV lights over there. So of course, I told you I wanted to jump into the fact of the windscreen over here. So I do find this interesting. Now, personally, I would have liked to have some parts that would clip, like have a second windscreen like this, and have a second part like this. So you could decide to put these stickers on and remove the parts to be able to have it if you wanted like this. Now, this is what I was saying. If your windscreen of your car or your vehicle, I mean, driving in Canada, up north, I can tell you, if your car throws up like this, there's no way you're sitting in an open space to wind and snow and all of that. You would freeze to death in less than an hour, whatever you're wearing. So of course, this is the missile system with the ski over here, or snowboard should I say, because that can be used as a snowboard. So there's some camo going underneath it, who's not an interesting feature. Of course, the box can open, so you can display it over here, or what something would have been nice would have been to have something else, and then you can remove them and show some gear into this vehicle. So of course, this does look pretty neat, and like I said, this was really needed retooling, and I'm happy that they did it. So of course, here are the missiles, and here is what I was telling you about how huge this tank, the his tank looks like some kind of stuff that could have been sold not through Haslab, but as you can see, it is really massive. It is a bit taller due to the fact of the rocket launcher on top, but you can see it is longer and of course wider, but you saw that in the video. The original Snow Cat is a lot bigger than the his tank, so it makes completely sense. But as you can see, it's huge. So that could be the justification for the extra dollars that you have to pay for it. But yeah, so anyway, let's dive into the figures and give you my final thoughts about all of this. So let's have a bit of a closer look at the figures, and I'm going to give you my thoughts about them. Of course, I don't know if there's going to be any evolution on these items, so we will have to see. But for now, this is what we're going to get. Getting a thermos with a cup, always a nice accessory to have. The fact that he has a pistol and a primary weapon and secondary weapon, this is perfect. This does reflect what should be a tier 1 operation group. I like the fact of having interchangeable head sculpts, one with the bunny hat and also the little headset over there. That makes totally sense. Having the 2 goggles is something that we know about. Now, my most disappointing part about this figure is that you cannot remove his hat, and this is something that I would have really liked to have a feature like with Shipwreck or with the Baroness, the possibility to switch out and to clips out. Something that you could have him without this hat would have made a lot of sense. Now, jumping on to the second figure, we have Lady Jaye. So of course, I was talking about the engine being pretty big and not having much space for fuel. As you can see, they must have some gas stations, because they did go and picked up some coffee from Tim Horton. If you're in Canada, you will understand, or they went to Starbucks. So I'm looking at Lady Jaye. She's the unlock at 10,000, and personally, I'm a bit disappointed by the figure itself. I find it cool that we are getting some fishing gear, different fish hook, and then this to drill a hole. So this does confirm, if you have to drill a hole this deep in the lake, you would freeze to death behind. Of course, she has her javelin, she has the backpack for the javelin, makes sense. She has the head like this. I have no problem. But why does she not get a laser rifle? They've made them, and it's already, one of them is included in the set. Why not give her that? Why not give her a secondary weapon as the pistol? This is something who's a bit disappointing, and is something that I've been pointing out since the beginning. G.I. Joe does not get as much love as Cobra. Now, for me, this is the set that sold me for this Haslab vehicle. This set needs to be released as a regular set in the G.I. Joe line. I think this is really some of the coolest sets that were made back in the day. I love those. When you will see the pictures I've used the tent. But let's be honest about this. So this is supposed to be the bivouac that goes with your snow vehicle, okay? There's no way that you're going to be sleeping on this bench with this kind of stuff. You would be covered. You need a tent. You need a lot more stuff than what's over here. This goes for a jungle operation or outpost or some kind of a forward operation stage in place where you would be, but this doesn't make sense. And you can see that they really want to give a big homage to the original one, because you have the cantina over here. The fact of getting the tow missile is pretty nice. You get the communication set. You get, this is the burner that goes on the side of the vehicle. So if you don't get the 12,000, you're not going to get this. Then you have, of course, this turns around and you can put your shovel and your axe, who makes sense. But this, yeah, you're in the jungle or you need to cut through some bushes, you're going to be using that. Up north, you have nothing. Anybody who went up the really north, you will see that there's not much growing. Afterwards, you have the fire, who's a nice little neat add-on, and having two fishers with the holes in. We're going to be having a closer look at that. Is a pretty cool accessory. Again, this for jungle or for desert or whatever, or even OD version, I mean, yeah, would make sense, but has this as an Arctic stuff, yeah, you'd be dead before you would freeze to death, so it does not make sense. So we're going to go on the third tier that has been unlocked, and this is going to be our friend Flint. So he unlocks, of course, at 14,000 pieces sold. It is nice to have, of course, it would make sense if you have Flint, you would have, of course, what's his name, Lady Jaye, does make sense. But again, here we have the typical tier 1 operator. Now, not only he has a primary weapon, he does have a breaching or a shotgun, and he has a pistol. Now, you see, if you're going to give me the laser rifle, you should be giving it for all the figures. Now, he has a coffee pot, who's very interesting, that goes well with the gas stove, because you will put your water over here, you have your coffee over here, and with the boiling water, goes in and infuses. But you're not going to be using your Starbucks stuff. So I think Flint and Lady Jaye cheated. They stole the Snow Cat. They want to refuel and decided to buy some coffee because they don't like it over here. I like the fact of having the picks for this, for of course the fish or the sausages. Works pretty fine. Some fried eggs, why not? It's something who could work, because you're going to need a lot of energy if you're going to be sitting out in the cold. So yeah, it does make sense. But if you really think about it, what would have made more sense as a figure in the unlocks, and you see him in the cartoon and the commercial at the beginning of the fan stream that they did, you see Roadblock. Roadblock is a chef, so why wouldn't you have somebody who's an expert in cooking be one of the unlocked tiers? Now, I know that there could be an issue with it due to the fact that Roadblock is way, way taller than the other figures, so he could have some problems fitting into the vehicle. So the question is, do I like the Snow Cat? Well, I do like the features of it. I think it came out a lot better. I'm happy that we didn't got an unlocked tier with some patches, because that would have been a real disaster if we would have that. But I do find it a bit expensive. $324, I know it's a bit of a difference, but if you really think about it, if you have two figures, that means $25 each. And if you have the Bivouac, you counted $30, or maybe even lower it could be. That still puts you at the vehicle at about $260. You could have done this vehicle in the same kind of size, maybe not with working tracks or some other features like you've done over here with so much light ups, and you could have got it way under the $200 margin. Like I was saying in my video, if you wanted to test this vehicle, this would have been the perfect opportunity for you to come and say, hey, we're going to put this Haslab exclusive, and we're going to, Hasbro Pulse exclusive, like the Vamp and the AW Striker, the Battle Armor, Escape Armor, all this kind of stuff needs to stay exclusive. I know that for my American collector friends are not going to like me to say that, but if you want them to keep a certain standard value, you have to not sell them to other people, because you are going to have a lot of clearance and people are going to wait for it to go on clearance. So that's not something who's really good for the brand if you have it. Now, yeah, like I said, I do find it a bit expensive. It doesn't seem to be a vehicle that I want. Now, there's a very tricky question, is they're saying to you that it's $324.99. Now I can't remember. I will have to go and look it up on the website of Hasbro Pulse. There's some extra fees. So if you're not a member of Hasbro Pulse, you're going to pay about $7 of shipping, and you're going to pay another $30 extra for shipping this large vehicle. So technically, it does bring it up at a pretty expensive place. So yeah, I'm happy to have the Hasbro Pulse stuff. It permits me not to have the headache, so I think it's worth to pay the $50. And if you order 2 of these, your $50 are well paid and being paid off by doing this. So yeah, ordered one, like I said. I'm going to see how it's going to evolve. I will talk about and see where they're going with the evolution. I think the 324 price tag was already something that was a bit of an issue for me at the time with the Rattler, because I think it was around that price. If it's a bigger vehicle, I'm willing to put the extra money into it, but the Snow Cat for me should have been a general release. Hasbro Pulse exclusive, and that's why really a bit of a shame that we did not have that. So that's going to be it for my thoughts and what do I think about the Haslab. Oh, before jumping into that, what did I think about Yojo June, the 5th episode? Well, I'm a bit disappointed because, yes, I knew that I was going to have all the info about Frostbite, the Unlocked Tears, the Snow Cat, but there was no figures announced. I mean, could you have given us some digital renders, a figure that's going to be coming up for pre-order sometime soon? Maybe some snow troopers to go with it, to kind of say, oh wow, if I order it, I'm going to be able to put this and this figure with it. It would have been a nice touch on it. But that would be my only little nitpick that I would have to say about this. The presentation was good, so cannot really complain about it. So that's now going to be it for this video. If you like this kind of video, please leave a like, share, comment. Tell me what you think about the Snow Cat. Are you buying? Are you passing? And why are you doing it? I would like to open a conversation with other fans so that we can have a civilized discussion about these vehicles. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!